We are all no stranger to the world of distractions. And us with ADHD, it's just a little bit more difficult to get the work done. So how do we fight that Instagram reel? How do we fight the TikTok scrolling that gives us that dopamine hit that feels so good? So good that we would never want to touch our textbook because our textbook would never give us a dopamine hit like that. How do I manage my life as a fourth-year medical student that has to study an incredible amount? How do I manage the ADHD so that I can effectively do all the work I need to do and still have fun in my day? This is sort of a practical plan towards how to structure your day and how to get everything done in one day. While it might not be the most efficient, it's efficient in the sense that it's achievable, and that is the most important thing. Having an achievable system. I spend a lot of time watching productivity videos on YouTube, and I used to sort of journal, and I read the book The Second Brain, which I'm pretty sure many of you are aware of if you've been in the productivity space. And I found that all these systems were a bit too pressuring for me. I sort of struggled to see why or how these systems were going to benefit me because I spent and put so much effort into running these systems that they almost just put negative pressure on me all the time, and I felt like I was running after a system that I wasn't coping with. So I devised this more simple process, simple system that should get you through the day and that sort of optimizes a learning space instead of optimizing exactly what you have to do. The first step to controlling your ADHD is figuring out that you cannot control ADHD. ADHD gives us sort of these ups and downs during the day where we feel quite low or we feel extremely good. So it's very important to have a little bit of a sort of routine when it comes to sleep and when you eat, because these are factors that will influence this rhythm. But if I have my normal rhythm, for example, for myself, I normally wake up at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and if I had a normal night's sleep, I will be effective to work by 10 o'clock in the morning. I know that no earlier for me because I'm too distracted in the morning. So my first phase of studying is usually between 10 o'clock in the morning and 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I then enjoy quite a long lunch break of 3 hours, doing gym or eating or doing a whole lot of other things. And my next phase is between 4 o'clock in the evening and 7 o'clock in the evening. And then my last phase of the day or of the night is between 9 o'clock at night and midnight. And these are the three phases that I try and utilize to get as much work done as I can. So for you, it might be a bit different. For you, you might say, oh, I work really well in the morning or I work really well in the evening. For each of us, it's going to be different. And this is true for people that have ADHD, but also true for people that don't have ADHD. Just those of us that have ADHD have to be a bit more aware and sensitive to these waves so that we can maximize our efficiency and our productivity in those times. Step 2, non-negotiables. These are things that you have to do every day to keep you happy over a long period of time. For myself, I have 3 specific non-negotiables. One of them being I have to go outside every single day. And sometimes that's quite challenging in environments like in Latvia where we have minus 22 degrees, for example, like today. And it's very difficult to motivate myself to go outside. But I realize the fresh air and the light is what makes me feel good. My next non-negotiable is sport. I have to do at least 1 workout per day, be it a quick ab workout or a stretching session or a short run around the block. Doesn't matter. I need to spend 15 to 20 minutes of the day at least exercising or doing some sort of activity that makes me feel good. And lastly, my last non-negotiable is I want to watch or have to watch series every day. And this might sound stupid, but 1 episode of Big Bang Theory is 20 minutes in which I don't have to concentrate on anything else but the TV. And I've watched Big Bang Theory 10 times. It doesn't matter. These episodes are something that calm me down and that give me a little bit of joy in my day. So they're the things that keep me going. And it's very important that you figure out and be realistic about how you choose your non-negotiables. But choose 1 or 2 non-negotiables and execute them every day to keep your study process from getting you down and sort of being a rut. And that's really, really important. These non-negotiables are things that make you happy and you have to execute them. Step 3. Remove all the distractions out of your life. Now, I'm someone that gets distracted by a dirty house or by washing that's not done, a washing basket that's overflowing. So make sure that you remove these distractions in either your free time or in before the day starts. I struggle to sit at my desk if the whole house is chaotic and things are lying around or I have washing to do. So usually I will make sure the house is sort of clean and that I've put the washing in the washing machine so that during my break time I can hang up the washing and sort of feel like productive and that my day has gone somewhere. Often we have this feeling that if we only study the whole day, that we feel completely useless and we get nothing done. And sort of by laying tasks in the sense by saying, I'm going to put the washing on this morning, and in your first break time between, for example, for myself, between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock, I managed to do the small house tasks that I started in the morning. It gives us a feeling of being quite successful with the day. So create a condition in your environment that makes you succeed by not allowing the distractions to get to you while you're studying. In other words, get all the jobs done you can get done first, and then make sure you sit down. Because I find there's nothing worse than sitting down at your desk and realizing, oh, but I could do some washing, or the kitchen really needs to be vacuum cleaned. These are ideas that only pop into my head when I'm sitting and trying to study. I'd much rather be playing PlayStation or watching TV. That's not when I have these ideas. But as soon as I open that textbook, and I'm sure so many of you can relate, when it's chaotic outside of your room or inside your room, the first thing you want to do is clean. Very, very weird, because it's just not an urge I have normally. But set up the tasks that they give you some sort of satisfaction. Right, so now we've created the optimal condition to start studying. And you know, we've created everything around the study process, but we have to now jump over the biggest hurdle, which is starting to study. Now, we're in our time, in our optimal time, we've done the dishes, we've hung up the washing, and we've figured out what we want to do today, but now we've got to figure out what work we want to do today, because it's easy to get focused on doing all the other things and making optimal conditions without getting started. You know, that's the quintessence of ADHD. So essentially, usually when I want to get started, what I do is I make sure that I set a realistic goal for the day to be achieved. Now, so many people set unrealistic goals. They look at a book like this and they say, I need to study this much of this book today, and that is such an unrealistic goal. So make sure that you set a realistic goal. Now, how do we go about setting this realistic goal? Well, first of all, we need to figure out all our sources of information. If we have a test, let's say next week, we normally have guidelines. And these guidelines will sort of tell us what sources of information to use, what sources of information not to use. And, you know, they'll say, read up about Ebola, as an example. Now, if we read up about Ebola, we can spend the next year reading up about Ebola, but we need to figure out what is relevant information. And I always grew up with this saying, if the game is cricket, play cricket. Now, that might sound like a sports analogy that does nothing to do with studying, but it does. If we look at a test is a game. It's a challenge. So we need to prepare ourselves for this challenge with the right equipment and the rules of the game. So we need to make sure that we fall within our scope of work. And what I can recommend is trying to find past papers and referencing past papers with current lectures and looking at how the questions are asked. Because if you figure out how the questions are asked, you can actually study in a style and in an amount of detail that will teach you to answer questions like that. There's no point in arriving at a cricket game with a tennis racket or a hockey stick. So if the game is cricket, play cricket. Make sure that you're studying towards a realistic goal. The final step of this process is trusting in the process of studying. So I'm someone, I tend to cram, and I tend to always sort of start studying for my tests 3 days or maybe even 2 days before the deadline of the test. I'm particularly good at cramming though, and it does take a bit of time and practice. But what I realize is that I always go through a phase during my study process in which I stop believing that the study process is going to work. What does that mean? It means that when I start doing my Anki cards, in the first 3 to 4 hours, I don't know the answer to any Anki card, and I will go through 300 to 400 flashcards and I will feel demotivated because I'll realize in 4 hours I've learned nothing. What I do though is often in my study process or in my study sessions, these 3-hour study sessions, I tend to take 10-minute meditation time, but I call them brain yoga. So I essentially just lie on my bed, I close my eyes, I set a 10-minute timer, and I don't sleep. I just lie there and try and think of nothing. And when I wake up again, I realize that I can do the Ankis just a little bit better each time. And when I look at the whole 9-hour process, I see that maybe 5 or 6 hours of my study process were really terrible because I couldn't find the answers, and I struggled and I didn't succeed in getting the answers to the test that I was doing or to the Anki cards. So if you have a study process, stick to it. Yes, there is lots of time to refine study processes, but don't do that in the last phase of your test. What I find people doing is they are 3 days before their exam or test, and they throw everything out the window saying, I can't do this, I need to change the way I study. No, stick to the system. If you want to change the system that you study in, you have to change that 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before. But once you're committed to a study process, you have to believe that it's going to work, otherwise it's not going to work. I know that my study process is very chaotic, and it's usually crammed, and it's quite stressful, but it works extremely well for me. And my friends that know a bit about how I study, they will know that for 2 days I'm in a bad mood because I feel like I'm struggling, and then on the last day before the test, I suddenly have this sort of aha moment where I manage to get everything done that I need to get done, and I start knowing all the answers. So trust in the process and it'll work out. Concluding this video and quickly summing it up, we have these 5 steps that get us to where we want to be as someone that is quite affected by ADHD, or at least it works for me, and I hope it does work for you. I'm going to quickly summarize these 5 steps in sort of one paragraph. So it's knowing when to study and riding the wave of how you feel, and figuring out that a little bit of routine really can do you really well in these study processes. Non-negotiables. What is my non-negotiable for the day? What makes me happy? Make sure that you take that time to use those non-negotiables to make a sustainable impact on your mental health while you're studying. Remove all the distractions. Clean the house before, clean your room before, hang up the washing, have that little feeling of success in the household to make sure that when you sit at the table, that there's nothing distracting you. Start studying and create a realistic goal for the day and for each day. You don't need to write it down. You can know it in your head. I'm someone that doesn't write things down. You can just know it in your head, and that will get you, that feeling of success and that you got somewhere. And then lastly, trust in the process. Don't change your study technique 2 days before the test. If you think that there is change needed in your study process, make sure that you plan this change. Don't make it happen overnight. All right, guys, I hope if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I am really trying to grow the channel, and I really enjoy your feedback. So leave lots of comments and tell me what you think about this video. If you have any ideas or videos that you want to see, maybe if you want to have a look inside my chaotic study process that still seems to get me really good grades, then let me know and I'll make a little guide on that. And if you guys want to see anything specific from life as a medical student in Eastern Europe, or life as a medical school in general, life in medical school in general, then let me know and leave it in the comments below, and I'll really be excited if you subscribe. Anyway, that was enough for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.